Alrighty, folks, welcome into another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Docker. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod, and you can find us on Facebook as well. That's facebook.com/901 Soccer. Going to be recapping Saturday night's game, Memphis 901 FC game against North Carolina FC. Give you my thoughts on that, kind of the run-up to it, how it played out, and post-game reaction. And this will be probably the last post-game pod for a little while, as we're going to be, I'd say, probably just about a month before we have another home game down at AutoZone Park. So that's kind of going to be a depressing gap there. But let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Memphis 901 FC Saturday night falls to North Carolina, final score of 2-1. Memphis went up 1-0 in the first half, and then it's almost expected at this point. It happened, it's continued to happen, and I don't really see any reason why it's not going to continue to happen. Is Memphis giving up a late goal just before halftime, and then giving up a goal just before the end of the game? If it's happened once, it's happened a dozen times. And if I had to set the over-under at a dozen, I'd probably have to bet the over. Because this is not something that is new. It's not something that we haven't seen before. It's incredibly frustrating. And a couple of the players after the game, Marcus Epps and Liam Doyle, chief among them, said it's incredibly frustrating to get as close to scoring as they have. Marcus Epps in particular, as I believe right before North Carolina got their first goal, he rang a header off the post off a corner kick, which immediately followed a pair of great saves by Tambakis, however you pronounce his name, in goal for North Carolina. And after the game, Marcus Epps said that they were feeling good about the first half until North Carolina scored, and then said that it's super frustrating to get close to scoring like they did and only hit the post and then immediately give up a goal at the other end. And Liam Doyle, after the game, even said that you got to play well for the full 90 minutes. That's, I guess that's really a no-brainer, but I guess it needs to be repeated. And he added that it's about managing moments, and you have to have a mentality to close out a half and close out a game. And I hate to have to say this, but there's really no evidence to suggest that Memphis has that mentality. It sucks. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. I can't imagine any of the players or any of the coaching staff are happy about it, but that's just the reality. This team can't close out. They can't do it. I mean, we've seen it happen against Indy. I think we saw it happen against Red Bulls too. We saw it happen obviously against North Carolina. We've seen it happen, I don't know, probably against Nashville. It didn't happen against Ottawa because we Caldwell pitched a shutout, and it didn't happen in any of the Open Cup games. But it's happened too many times. Late goals at the half, late goals at the end of the game. And things got rolling, and it was actually looking like it was going to be pretty good. Coach McQueen mentioned after the game it did start to show that this was the third game the team played in 7 days, and normally I don't particularly buy into a fatigue argument, normally. Like, for how many times when the Grizzlies are absolute garbage do we have to hear, oh, it was the second night of a back-to-back, or it was the third game in 19 days, or stupid excuses like that. Because, the Grizzlies are the only team that has to play back-to-back nights or X games in a few amount of days. This actually, though, for Memphis, for 901 FC, was the St. Louis. You had the Pittsburgh game last Saturday, which they just got absolutely shelled, and there's no point in going on about that. Then they went up to St. Louis, which was a game that had been canceled and postponed and rescheduled after, I think it was, early June, maybe late May, where they went to St. Louis and there was severe weather, so they had to reschedule it. So I'm not going to fault Coach Mulqueen for bringing up 3 games in 7 days when you look at the schedule, and this wasn't, August 6th was not originally supposed to be a game on the road. It was originally supposed to be June 1st. Bad weather, got to move it to somewhere else on the calendar. But they went up there and they played reasonably well. Cam Lindley got sent off, unfortunately. But they were able to get a 0-0 draw. And then you get home. You're playing North Carolina. You're playing a North Carolina team. As a matter of fact, their manager is Dave Saracen, who I'm sure some of you will remember was the U.S. interim manager for a year after Bruce Arena resigned and before the almighty, powerful, and wise Greg Berhalter got hired. Saracen didn't do too terrible of a job. His record not great, 3 wins, 5 losses, 4 draws with the U.S., but he actually ran out and attempted to play the young players and develop the youth, guys like Tim Weah, Josh Sargent, not Michael Bradley, not Josie Altidore, not Jossie Zardes. But anyway, I digress. So he's done a very good job with North Carolina this year. And a guy that's had club experience in MLS. Now he's in the USL. He's got international experience with the U.S. So it was going to be a tall task for Memphis. But they came out guns blazing with their hair on fire. And they looked really, really good, I thought, in the first half. And that was pretty much the consensus among the media. So I was a little bit surprised in postgame when Coach Mulqueen said he thought they were lucky to be 1-1 going into halftime. Because I'd say the lion's share of the chances went to Memphis. I mean, you had that, like I mentioned earlier, you had that flurry right around probably the 30-minute mark where there were 5 or 6 solid chances that either required worldly saves or shots ringing off the post. I know Adam Najim had one that just went over the bar by about a millimeter. And Memphis did take the lead. They went up 1-0, and surprise, surprise, it was Brandon Allen. I think that's probably been the best in-season signing so far, is because his first couple of games was a little kind of tough sledding, but since then, I'd say the New York game, the Ottawa game, and the North Carolina game, I think he scored in all 3 of those. I know he scored against North Carolina, obviously got the only goal. Come to think of it, I think the Ottawa game, he was the final Memphis player to get a touch, but they gave the Ottawa player an own goal. But it was Allen that got the final touch coming off a corner kick, and I believe he got the opener against Red Bulls 2 as well. So that's like 3 straight home games where Brandon Allen has been kind of the guy in the penalty area making things happen. 2 goals, and probably should have had another one, but they gave an own goal, but he was the last Memphis player, so colloquially we'll say he's got 3 goals. But he gets the opener, and Memphis kept the pressure on. You know, we've seen sometimes this year where Memphis will get a goal and kind of back off and sit back, and that wasn't the case against North Carolina. And then just the 4th official hadn't even put up the 2 minutes for added time at the end of the first half, and I missed the goal because I was looking at the 4th official trying to see what the added time was, and then all of a sudden you hear the collective groan in the stadium, and I look, and the ball is trickling around in the goal, and I'm sitting here going, oh, that's probably not a good one. And then you look up and see the replay, and it was maybe the weakest, most lame bicycle kick attempt ever, and it still went in. And that's going to be one that I think Jeff Caldwell's going to want back. I mean, right through his legs, right through the 5-hole. I mean, it's... You can say it was a howler, I guess. He's really doing basically what he's supposed to, which is make yourself big, which is how you end up with a gap between your legs. And whoever the North Carolina attacker was that was right there, I think his presence altered Caldwell just enough to the fact that he, I guess, maybe just took his eye off the ball. Maybe it took a funny hop. Really, at the end of the day, it didn't matter. The ball went in the back of the net, and it's 1-1 just before the half, and it's... here we go again. But then the first, I'd say 25, 30 minutes of the second half was fairly evenly matched. I don't think anybody had too many real clear-cut chances either way. And I want to give Coach McQueen some credit here because he wasn't content just to sit and hold on for the draw, because he took Abdi Muhammad off and brought on Lagos Kunga. And that's a very attack-minded substitution. When it's tied and you're taking off a defender and bringing on a dude who's lightning in a bottle on the offensive end of the field, Kunga makes things happen. Unfortunately, he didn't really make too much happen against North Carolina. And then you get close to the end, and you're in the 80-something minute, and it's really a tale as old as time. Like I've said, I don't really want to beat the horse to death here. The team's doing a good job of that for me. But you can't keep checking out before the final whistle. You just can't. And we're talking 5 minutes from time, and Al-Badawi, I think it was, for North Carolina, completely unmarked, 25 yards out from goal. You could have probably driven a tank between the gap and between him and the closest Memphis defender. He could have stood there and lined up a putt like he was on 18 at Augusta to win the green jacket. He had that much space and time, and he just let it fire, and I thought Caldwell was going to get to it. He was at full stretch. He was in midair, arms all the way out, and I thought he was going to get to it, and it was just a perfectly placed shot, and I don't think anybody was going to save that, and it's 2-1, and it's just, you could just see the collective heads go down there like, again with this, again. Coach McQueen made one final last-gasp substitution, brought on Jochengraff right after the goal. Nothing doing. North Carolina wins 2-1. I don't really know what else to say other than that. If we get a couple of results to bounce our way here or there, we go down to Birmingham and get a win. Defend home turf the rest of the way. I think we've got maybe 5 or 6 home games left this year. You maximize points at home, get a couple of results on the road. You're in the thick of the playoff picture. But the reality is this team's won 4 league games all year. 4 wins, 11 draws. 4 wins, 11 losses, 7 draws. So basically what we need is them to win more games at home the rest of the way than they've won all season. I don't think that's going to happen. What I think best case scenario is that we can hope all the way through the end of the season they are still mathematically in playoff contention so that everybody doesn't just mail it in and check out and go home. I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. I do hope I'm wrong. But I don't necessarily think that I am. That's why I said it. But other than that, other things about the game, you had Gary Parrish from 92.9 doing the guitar smash, and I think he did actually a very good job. It took him a couple tries to completely explode the guitar. He TKO'd the amp, which I thought was fantastic. Just whacked it. I think the amp took more damage than the guitar did on the first swing, and then after the guitar was in the appropriate number of 4 million little pieces, he did a flip, like a bat flip. Appropriate given that it's a baseball stadium, but he flipped the guitar, and I thought that was glorious. I think everybody's done, the big names that they've gotten to do the guitar smashes this year, I think have been all done a very good job, gotten people fired up. Attendance was good again. Somebody had actually asked us on Twitter if the announced attendance Saturday night was 7,006. And somebody had asked if that was a little bit lower than previous Saturday games. Now, on my spreadsheet here, I haven't been able to go back and look at what games were played on which days. I will say the 7,006 is a little bit higher than the average for the year. Average for the year now after the 7,006 against North Carolina. Through 13 games at AutoZone Park, the average is sitting at 6,856 per game through the 13 games. Total attendance is at 89,125. That's, I believe, second among expansion teams, and I believe that's top 5 among teams in all of the USL, not just the USL Championship, but in all of the USL. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But that's the support is there. There's no arguing that at this point. You've got how many? 13 home games, plus the 2 at Mike Rose, which are both very good crowds. You had a friendly, you had an Open Cup game, and 11 USL regular season games. And now you got 6 home games the rest of the way, 4 in the month of September. And there was a little bit of discussion at Brass Door prior to the game about, for those September games, is there any overlap with any other sporting events in Memphis going on at that time? First thing is that I don't think that would necessarily matter too terribly much, because we've seen Memphis draw some outstanding crowds at home this year while the Grizzlies have been playing just a couple of blocks away. We saw last year on 901 Day for the Colorado Rapids Tulsa Roughnecks, Colorado and Tulsa exhibition game at AutoZone Park while the Memphis Tigers had their football home opener, and there was a sellout crowd at AutoZone Park. So I don't think that there's going to be a ton of overlap. I don't think it's going to cause any problems, but it could. And as far as I'm aware, it doesn't look like there are, at least through September, there are any 901 games on the same day as Memphis Tiger football games. I don't think. So that bodes well going forward for both entities, really, because let's face it, as much as Memphis loves to say they'll always support a winner, they ain't supporting that football program. That's attendance has gone down for 3 straight years. So it would be mutually beneficial to both 901 FC and to the Memphis Tigers football team if there's no other competition going on at the same time. But other than that, I think that's probably going to wrap it up. Oh, one more thing I did want to add is somebody hit, John Varlas from the Daily Memphian, I believe, asked Coach McQueen how he feels the new signings have been integrating themselves into the team, how they've been doing, guys like Marcus Epps and Liam Doyle and Pierre Da Silva. And Coach McQueen says he thought those 3 all played a really good game Saturday night against North Carolina, and I think he's right. What I liked, Marcus Epps picked the ball up and went at people. I really liked that. Liam Doyle seemed to be a pretty solid rock in defense. I remember there was one play in the first half where a North Carolina player was in on goal, and Doyle didn't really do too much to stop him other than just being there, and the guy just ran smack into him and fell down, which was hilarious. And, of course, immediately gets up and starts screaming for a penalty, and the referee just laughed in his face, which I also thought was glorious. But I think that's probably going to do it here for us on this depressing post-game recap. Thanks, everybody, again, for listening. Thanks for continuing to show up and show your support for 901 FC. I'm Lawrence Docker. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. Find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. Find us on Facebook. That's facebook.com, and we are 901 Soccer over there. Thanks, everyone, again for listening, and we will talk to you next time.